Now, let me welcome on to the Top Dogs podcast, the man you know as the X's and O's expert on YouTube, none other than Jordan Sperber of Hoop Vision. Jordan, I appreciate you being here, man. It's been a while. We used to have you on the pod quite a bit more often. I've enjoyed watching your videos. I enjoy watching your breakdowns. The people that are tuning into this are going to be most interested in the UConn one, but I would very strongly suggest going and checking out the BYU video you did because they are a fascinating offense and a fascinating team. How you doing, man? How's life?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's a UConn week at Hoop Vision headquarters is what I wrote in my newsletter earlier this week. So it's a good week to come on the pod for sure.
All right, so before we get into it, plug your stuff, break down who you are, tell us what you do. You got a newsletter that goes out weekly, right? You have
Yep.
a YouTube channel that you get about like a video or two a month out of it, and we'll talk about why the videos kind of take a while to make, but just let
Yep.
everybody know where they can find the stuff that you do.
Yeah, probably the best place is Twitter. I tweet all the links to stuff. My Twitter is HoopVision68. Like you said, I have a YouTube channel and a newsletter with a focus on both X's and O's and analytics in college basketball. My niche is kind of the intersection between those two things, where the X's and O's and analytics come together. Um, and yeah, my newsletter is a Substack, so it's hoopvision.substack.com.
Yep, it's if you are um into what is actually happening in a basketball game and what teams are actually doing as opposed to just following along with some of the storylines and some of the narratives, which we all love this time of year. But the to learn the why is why you need to go follow all of Jordan's stuff and why I think I've been a subscriber for you since day one. Big fan, big supporter, and I am glad that you're here. So Jordan, let's talk about some of these breakdowns that you do. You just did I think it was a 13-minute video going through all of
Mhm.
the stuff and all of the sets that UConn runs. You did the same thing for BYU. You did the same thing explaining why Houston's ball screen defense is unique and not really found. So I want to start off with this. When you set out to break something down, when you set out to put together a video, what are you looking for? Is it okay, this team shoots 58% of their shots from beyond the three-point line. What's going on here? Okay, this team has a great defense. Let me explain what's happening here. Okay, UConn is trying to repeat. Let me like how do you pick what you want to do for your next video?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny particularly with the UConn video, I actually started working on that back in like January. And I was watching all their games. And my process is basically I try not to take notes at first because I want to get just an overall feeling um for what they do. And then when I go and rewatch it for a second time, that's when I start to take notes on what's happening. And with UConn, the big thing is they run so many sets that it was hard to a big key when making YouTube videos is you need to tell a story, a narrative, right? It was so many set plays that it was hard to kind of tell a story or besides just being totally X's and O heavy. And so what I ended up settling on was in the beginning of that video, I have a quote from Donnie Marshall about how he didn't think that a play was improvised, right? He didn't think it was a set play, and so that was the story that I wanted to tell. That UConn sets are so intricate that it looks like they're improvising, but they're not. And so that's kind of the process for developing the video is trying to find a story around all of these X's and O's.
How long does it take you to break down all of this film? Because look, you go back and you watch the UConn video. There's stuff in there from the New Hampshire game. I think you got something in there from
Yeah,
Mississippi Valley State. You got something in there from as recent as I think it was Creighton was the last UConn game that you had in there that I can think of off the top of my head. But you
yep.
you pretty much covered the entire season with all the sets that UConn runs. Did you watch like everything that they ran, every possession, two, three, four times? Like how long does it take you to do all this?
I watched the makes.
Okay.
for pretty much every possession. So um yeah, you're definitely correct in that it's I think for the UConn video, I think I had about 280 clips overall, and not all of those make the video itself, but it's definitely a large undertaking, and I you don't need to watch that much to make a video really, but I kind of get obsessive about making sure that I don't miss any little detail.
Well, that's why, at least in my mind, that's why your videos are so good because you will go find like the one possession where they actually run this set and then run it again, but with this little tweak and little difference. And I'm sure that the UConn coaching staff loves that you are out there giving away all of their trade secrets on a YouTube channel that has 100 something thousand subscribers. Um, I do the one thing I do find fascinating about the way that you kind of put this together is that it's not there are things I just mentioned there are things that you find where they run like two three four times like so how do you
Mhm.
kind of especially with UConn with how intricate their offense is and how many counters and how many different things they run out of like the same they have a bunch of false motion and then they're looking for a different action right um how long like how hard is it for you to kind of itemize all that, I guess. Like you're watching it and you're like, okay, here's this. Or do you have just like a spreadsheet of this is where they use the chin series to get into a zoom and this is where the back door is. Like how do you organize all of this?
Yeah. It's that's a really good question. Um I think it's something that I've just developed over time. The more that I've done this, the a big part of watching film is being able to label what you're watching, right? Being able to articulate it into words. I think that's a long time ago in my newsletter, I did a video on how to watch basketball, and that's like every action that you watch you need to have a name for. So the chin series is what you mentioned. uh, Having a name for each of those individual actions helps you see the play better as you keep watching.
Right. All right. So your background, right? You're not just some guy that started watching stuff on YouTube 2 years ago and decided to put this together. You've been on coaching staffs. You have been, I believe it was video coordinator for was it Muss at Nevada and then at New Mexico State? Am I making that up?
I was a grad assistant at Nevada for
Okay.
Muss, and then video coordinator at New Mexico State.
So take me through that transition, right? You're on coaching staffs, you are working with teams, and then all of a sudden you are doing a bunch of digital creation and building a business yourself. How did you make that leap into this side of the college hoops world?
Yeah. Well, I actually started blogging in high school, but before I ever worked in college basketball. So Hoop Vision, my Twitter account was made when I was in high school, and after I graduated college, like you said, I got a job as a grad assistant with Muss at Nevada, and that was just at the time in high school, I was writing X's and O's and analytics stuff. I just wasn't very good at it. And so getting that experience working for Muss and then working at New Mexico State as well for two different coaches, Chris Jans, who's now the head coach at Mississippi State, and Paul Weir. It was just a big it it was such a huge learning experience, learning from Division I coaches, not just the head coaches but the assistant coaches. Um, and now I think that my work is a million times better than it was back when I was in high school because of those lessons that I learned from the 3 years that I worked in college basketball.
Yeah. How many people have tried to hire you away from Hoop Vision? Have you been any coaching staff to reach out and say, you know what, you can come break down film for us. You don't need to be wasting your time giving this away to everybody.
I definitely have conversations with coaches. You mentioned, I think all three videos that I've done this season, the Houston, the UConn, and BYU, I have heard from their coaching staffs, from someone on their coaching staffs. Definitely the coaches are plugged into the content, and I honestly don't like talking to them sometimes because I feel like if they give me information, then I can't use it in the video, right? Like, so I almost don't want to be biased by them. But yeah, it's a pretty cool part of writing the newsletter and writing the videos is that the college coaching world is pretty plugged into it and they do read it.
When you do something like that and you hear from the coaches, how is there any time that they're like, yeah, you know what, you got this completely wrong? Like, are we watching the same thing right here? What are you doing? Have you ever gotten that? Because I feel like for the most part, you're about as spot on as it could possibly be.
I, I I won't say the name of the coach,
Yeah,
but one
don't
time
drag them. Don't drag them, man. Don't drag
yeah,
them.
yeah. One time I did a video on an individual game. It was a non-conference game a couple years ago, and the coach reached out to me and he was kind of offended by the fact that uh uh in they had played them. It was like a home and home series, and the year before they had played them and they beat them the year before. And so he kind of took offense to the fact that like I broke down that game and how it was a big mismatch. And they're like, well, we beat them the year before, so I sometimes I get stuff like that. But for the most part, everyone likes to suck up to you for the most
Mhm.
part. People like to suck up to the media. So usually the relationships are pretty good with the
Yeah,
coaches.
and especially when every coach and most of the media members are watching the stuff that you do, they want you to be like, look at how cool this is. Look at how smart this coach is. Instead of
Yeah.
you being like, oh, this is so dumb. Why would you run this against this defense? What is this guy doing? Right? They want that
Right.
positive PR coming out of Hoop Vision. So I do. This is a UConn pod, so I do want to talk a little bit about like the actual UConn offense. And one of the things I appreciate about you and the way that you kind of view the game is that you don't really get bothered by the way that it is covered, kind of from a national groupthink perspective, right? That I appreciate picking your brain and reading what you have to think because you kind of like you see what you see. You think what you think, and you get your information from the film that you're watching, as opposed to scrolling Twitter and seeing what this guy's opinion is, what this guy's opinion is, what this guy's opinion is. So let me ask you this: this UConn team, this version of it, what makes them so dangerous? What makes them so good? And are they built to repeat? I guess is the way that I would probably phrase it.
Hmm. Yeah. So this is definitely something that I've been thinking about having just finished the UConn video. What makes them so good, specifically offensively, because that's what I've focused on for sure. Um, they like I in the video, the two players that I touched the most on were Spencer and Caravan.
Mhm.
And I think that those two guys in particular are so good for from turning a team that's already very good into great, right? Like if this is what my thoughts, and I'd be curious to hear what you think about this. If you were starting from zero with a team that you had no one on the roster and you were starting from zero, maybe you pick Tristen Newton as the player to start your team with. He's a point guard. He can create his own shot. He's really good in ball screens. But if you're starting from a team that's already really good and you want to go to elite, I think I would pick Cam Spencer and Alex Caravan over Tristen Newton, to like marginally improve your team just because of the shooting they give you, the off-ball cutting, which is something I focus on with Caravan. They just have those pieces are so good from turning a good team into a great team, if that makes sense.
No, I entirely agree with it, and I think that having those two, specifically Tristen Newton and Cam Spencer together in the backcourt, is about as perfect of a marriage as you can get because they're both versatile enough that they can be floor spacers, they can make threes, you can run them off of different actions, they know how to pass. They don't they they are more than just like one specific skill set of a basketball player, right? Like I think if you're going to label both of them, they would both be in that kind of like combo range, right? I don't know if anyone would call Tristen Newton a pure point guard, whatever that definition is. I don't think anybody would call Cam Spencer a pure off guard, even if that's not a thing. But they both kind of uh, cross those boundaries. But it's very clear that you want Tristen Newton on the ball and you want Cam Spencer off the ball, and it just kind of works in concert together. And then with Tristen, I said this to someone the other day. They were asking why his shooting percentages are so low this year, and it's because so much of what they have to do offensively is they run all of this stuff. A lot of the stuff that they're running is to try to get Spencer a look, or try to get Caravan a look, or try to get Clingan rolling to the rim and get him a lob, get him a post touch. And then if that all breaks down and you got 8 seconds left on the shot clock, that's when they give the ball to Newton, let him try to figure out a way to make it work. And I don't know I don't know if there's different players that you could plug into those roles and have them be as good as they are, right? Like, I don't know if Cam Spencer would be as effective if you put him on like Marquette. I don't know if Tristen Newton would be as effective if he was on Creighton. You know what I mean? Like, I think the fact that this staff has those guys in those roles is why it thrives. And I think that what makes this coaching group, and I want your opinion on this. I think what makes this group of coaches, Dan, Luke, Kamani, and Tom, their whole staff, what makes them so good is that they are absolutely elite at figuring out what their guys do well and how they can put them in situations to accentuate those strengths. What's going on, everybody? Rob Doster here from the Field of 68, and I need to tell you about a partnership that we just signed with Autograph, a fandom company co-founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady.
Brady in the gun. Touchdown, Patriot!
I can't deal with my clogged Twitter feed anymore. Every single tweet gets 3 responses from some Twitter bot promoting gambling picks. I just want to read the articles, man. I just want to read stories. I just want to listen to my favorite podcast. I just want to consume the content that breaks down my favorite college basketball team, and I want to do it all in one place. Now I can with the new Autograph Rewarding Fandom app. That place exists. And here's the best part about it. The more content you consume about your favorite team and the more reward points that I rack up, the better my chances are going to be to score one-of-a-kind fan merch, discounted tickets to games, or other awesome items and experiences on the Autograph app. So go download it, use that referral code F68, that's F68, and get access today. And hey, if you do, maybe I'll get my buddy Tom to send you a thank you note. The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are now partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the conference and NCAA tournament. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD150, and you'll get $150 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not that bet hits. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD150. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game, and you get $150 in free bets regardless of the outcome. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD150 when you sign up. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the conference tournaments and for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, and what I love the most, a nice little parlay boost, as well as a ridiculous array of prop bets for anything that you could possibly imagine betting on in March and in early April. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use Field150 as the code, and sign up today. And while I've got you here, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get here for absolutely free is to engage with it. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to our show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking of my notes when I started the video, and how I organized things was sets for Spencer, sets for Clingan, sets for Caravan, sets for Newton. You know, it's like that's how their playbook is oriented, is different actions that they run for the individual players. The one set from the video for Spencer where they run recently they've been running 3 pin downs in a row for him. He's, or well, 3 total, 2 for him. They ran that play last night, like 2 or 3 times against Marquette, and that's just, you know, tailor made to Cam Spencer, that set. Um, and yeah, they they optimize each player's skill set extremely well. And then, I mentioned this in the video about Caravan, just his instincts as a cutter. Even if you aren't running good stuff, just having those instincts as a cutter is going to make your offense really good too. So it's definitely a combination of the players and what the coaching staff does to maximize them.
Yeah, the set you're referring to, I think they started doing it, I want to say in the middle of the season, right? Like I don't know this, you probably know the specific time frame better than I do, but it's for the people listening, it's the one where they run Cam off of a pin down and there's someone that and he basically curls through and then there's someone trailing him in the place was supposed to be the first couple times they ran it for that second guy coming off the pin down, right? And basically a pin down is an off ball screen with the ball at the top of the key. And now what they do is they have Spencer run off it and curl, but instead of going through to the other side, as the other guy runs off the pin down, he runs off it again. So Cam Spencer is just running it basically in a big circle to get screened 2 different times. And it's just like they have so many sets like that where it's why are you running around so much? Why is there all of this? Why is this all this motion in the offense? 1, 2, where the hell do you come up with stuff like this? And 3, it's got to be absolutely miserable trying to defend those guys running all of that stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, when they ran it against Marquette last night, I was watching the bench, Marquette's bench, and you could see their coach. I don't know which assistant it was, but he did see it happening right away, and he was like waving his hand around in a circle because like he's coming back, waving the hand around.
Yeah. Where does UConn's offense and their playbook rank among the most intricate in college basketball? There are a couple in my mind that stand out that are similar, but I think that in terms of how many sets they have, how many different looks they have out of the same setup, and how long and elaborate the plays that they run are, I don't think that there's anybody that is at that level at all.
Yeah, I think particularly the long and elaborate part there. I mean, there's so many Division I basketball teams that it's hard to say any absolutes, but in terms of the long and elaborate, they're about as elaborate of plays as I've seen. Purdue is a team that runs a lot of sets. They have a very deep playbook, but they tend to be a little bit more of the quick hitter variety than UConn's. And a lot of them are like very small variations of itself. Matt Painter is kind of famous for having his own like terminology. It's almost like football terminology where they just like make little tweaks off of the same sets. So Purdue and UConn definitely come to mind for the top teams, at least in the country.
I would put Creighton in that conversation
Yeah.
as well. It's a little less this year. It feels like they're running a little bit more just kind of straight ball screen stuff this year than they have in the past. But McDermott it's the same thing as Painter. They have deep playbooks. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but all 3 of those coaches, they have a specific action that they're looking to get a specific player in. And the way that they get into that action is Painter just sets them up differently. And it's basically like, boom, run this. You have one action and you're going to try to get the shot out of it. Same thing with Mac at Creighton. Whereas UConn, it's like, all right, we're going to run around and do all of this different stuff for 15 seconds. But what we really want to do is get Tristen Newton coming off of a zoom where we're trying to get a Spain backdoor set for Clingan, and we're going to throw it up to the rim. And we want the lob with 9 seconds left on the shot clock. But we're going to run around for 14 seconds beforehand to get into. Am I close? Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned Creighton. Whenever I watch the NBA, which I don't watch a ton of during the college season, but when I watch the NBA, after the season's over, I'll be like, "Oh, Creighton runs that. Oh, Creighton runs that. Oh," so that they're very NBA centric action. But no, you're absolutely right about UConn.
That's actually because I wanted to ask you about this. It has nothing to do with UConn at all, but when you the difference to me between NBA and college coaching is that in the NBA, everyone's going to kind of run the same stuff, right? And what it comes down to is, do you have the best players? The best players are probably going to end up winning. Whereas in college, so much of what you can get away with is, or so much of the ways that you can win is what you can get away with offensively, what you can run, and the way that you can kind of scheme offenses to take advantage of specific mismatches. Put another way, it's not always the best players in college that win games. Does that make sense? And is there a reason for that?
Yeah, well, the thing that comes to mind immediately is that NBA players are just so damn good. Like the
There is
shot
that.
making is next level. Um, it's definitely a star oriented league. And so I would argue that probably just in general, the lower level of basketball that you get, the more influential coaching can become. I would say that a really, really good high school coach is even more influential than a really, really good college coach. So I think I agree with what you're saying.
All right, I got a loaded question for you. I need your honest take on this. You have had a fresh set of eyes on UConn. You are completely unbiased by the masses, by the angry hordes on UConn Twitter. Who is the best player on this team?
Ooh.
It's a tough one,
Yeah,
right?
that's really tough. That's really tough. Well, as much as I've watched UConn, I really haven't focused on their defense, and I know Clingan is so good defensively. So um, it's a really tough question. I think it's 1A, 1B, 1C for the most part. But if you're considering both sides of the ball, I would still be hard pressed to not pick Clingan because of the defensive impact.
So this is where I am with it. I would say Klingon is their most valuable player, right?
Mhm.
To me, the biggest drop off when you don't have him on the floor is Klingon. To me, that's what the
Mhm.
definition of valuable is, right? And that's not a shot at Samson Johnson. That's just, that's how good Klingon is defensively at the five. I would say if you were going to have to vote someone for Big East Player of the Year off of this group, to me, it would probably be Tristen Newton. Um, and I mean, look, at the end of the day, he's the leading scorer. He's like the only guy in the country averaging 16, 6 and 5.5 assists or something like that. He's the guy that they trust at the end of the clock to go make a play. Um, so I'll probably have him as like the Big East Player of the Year. But I think that Spencer is the guy that they're not as good, anywhere near as good without him. Like you made this point earlier, and we don't have to rehash it, but like he
Yeah.
elevates everything else more than anyone else elevates it when he's on the floor.
Mhm.
And I don't know, people can kind of separate who is the best player on this group. I think the reason why UConn is as good as they are is because they don't have a air quotes best player on this team.
Yeah. 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 That's exactly right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would say Spencer is my favorite player to watch from them for sure. But yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning about him
Mhm.
like being the perfect player to elevate you from good to great. I mean, I think he's let's see, I've got KenPom up right here. He's now at yeah, his offensive rating is 140 right now. I mean, that's ridiculous at this stage in the season. That's number one in the country. And yeah, he's. I saw. I would like to cite who I saw tweet this, but his his shooting percentages combined with his assisted turnover has never been done. Did you see that tweet?
Yeah, it's Jared Burson. No one has ever had a 50-40-90 season with a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, which is what Cam Spencer is doing right now. So we'll see if
Yeah.
that hangs out. That's Jared Burson, who I think used to be part of ESPN Stats and Info. He's if you don't follow him, follow him. If you want nuggets on like the first time anything has ever happened, like that dude has it for every team in college. It's insane. I have no idea how he's able to figure all that stuff out, but he's able to do it. All right, last one, because this was a big talking point last night. My guy Terrence Oglesby has been beating this drum for a while. He says that Cam Spencer this year, as just a college basketball player, was better than Jordan Hawkins last year as just a college. Taking out like what Jordan's doing in the NBA, what Cam Spencer may or may not do in the NBA. fifth-year senior Cam Spencer versus sophomore Jordan Hawkins. You are Coach Jordan Sperber. You're running the UConn Huskies. Excuse me. Who do you want?
Oh man, I honestly think that the answer is probably Cam Spencer. Just, having nothing to do with NBA prospects, obviously, or the fact that he's older, but yeah, the efficiency is just off the charts. I mean, I think that Jordan Hawkins is a little bit better of a movement shooter. Like he would
Oh yeah.
fly off screens and has a super quick release. Not to say that Spencer's not a good movement shooter. The numbers speak for themselves there. He's 46% from three and he takes tough ones. But so yeah, if if you're looking for someone to fly off of their screens, I would probably take Hawkins over him. But just the whole picture, well, in the video, I mentioned how Spencer's obviously a below the rim guy from two, but he's super efficient inside the arc. I feel like he might lead the country in one-legged jump shots. He's the Dirk or what have you. I think I would probably lean towards him. If Hawkins was a senior, things might change from there. But if we're just comparing sophomore Hawkins to senior Spencer, I think I'd be leaning at least towards Spencer.
So the one thing that makes it close to me, and I think I tend to agree there. It's close, but the one thing that makes me lean towards Hawkins a little bit is I think that with the threat of him running off of the screen and the threat that he brings to be able to hit 2, 3, 4 threes in a row. Like there were games last year that he won just because on 4 straight possessions they ran something for him and he banged. It was I think it was the Iona game in the first round of the tournament. UConn was down at the half in that game, and in like the first 3 minutes of the second half, he bangs 4 threes, and all of a sudden the game's over. I think his threat you can manipulate defenses. You can open up space for people like Sonogo, like cutters, like Andre Jackson on backdoor lob, whatever it is. You can open up space just by having him run a certain way. And I don't think that Cam Spencer quite carries the same threat because, I mean, like, look, I don't think we've seen a better movement shooter than Jordan Hawkins since probably like Rip Hamilton. Right. So I think that the threat of what he can be opens up so much stuff for what you can do because no one had more gravity than he. Like you could see defenders move around him. It was like, remember in science class when we were in like 8th grade and you would get like the iron shavings and you have a little magnet and you moved it around the outside and you'd see the iron shavings move towards the magnet. That's what it's like when you watch Jordan Hawkins run off the screens. But it's tough, man. They're both. I'll put it like this. That's a good problem for a coaching staff to have if you have to decide between one of those two.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm looking at Hawkins's numbers a little bit, and his usage was significantly higher than Spencer. So even though the efficiency was lower, if you're just looking at it statistically, I think you could probably make a case for either of them. Hawkins being a little bit more of a volume player than Spencer, but Spencer being a little bit more efficient.
All right, Jordan. Appreciate you being here. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Hoop Vision HQ and then the Hoop Vision 68 YouTube channel. I'll link all that stuff in the description below. Can you tease what you got coming up next? Can you tell us what you're working on? Is it the whole 68 teams in 68 minutes or whatever you do for the NCAA tournament? Is that where your focus is right now, or we got another big team breakdown coming soon?
This is breaking news, but I'm actually not doing the 68 teams video this year.
Man.
I've gotten soft in my old age. I've gotten soft. I have a video idea that will come out around Selection Sunday, but the team is actually they might need to win their league to get in. I won't give it away who the team is, but they might need to win their league to get in.
Interesting.
Yeah, do you have a guess from that or no?
I do. I don't. Is it New Mexico?
No, it's not New Mexico. It's not New Mexico. But yeah, so you're familiar with how YouTube works. You need a title and a thumbnail for anything to do good on YouTube. And I have a title and a thumbnail for this video. So that's that's the key to success on YouTube. Which, by the way, if you're interested in the YouTube video, it's called "Why This Offense Is Basketball Poetry." That's the title of the
It's a good
UConn
title.
video.
It's a good title.
I appreciate that.
You have one that went nuts. It's got like 3 million views or something else. And it says the team that doesn't pass. And I was just like, okay.
Team that doesn't dribble. Team that doesn't.
Oh, the team that doesn't dribble. Yeah, the team that doesn't dribble. Which is Bellarmine, right?
Bellarmine. Yep. That's it's I think maybe 2.7 million views right now, which is pretty crazy. It was definitely not. Yeah, not bad at all. was not on my was not foreseeing that when I started watching Bellarmine. You know, it was like, you know, sometimes when you're making YouTube videos, you do one for yourself and one for like the views, you know, and I think the Bellarmine one was more for myself, and it turned out to be for the views.
It was for the views.
Yeah,
it was for the views for sure.
Yeah.
Listen, Jordan, it was a pleasure catching up, my man. Great video on UConn. Love the channel, and anybody watching this should be over there subscribing right now. So hopefully you get a little bit of a bump. Jordan Sperber, Hoop Vision. Appreciate you being here, man.
Thanks, Rob.
That's right. It's Field of 68 After Dark. Welcome in. We're on SiriusXM. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on X, as we always are throughout the college basketball season. It is March 6th, 2024. I'm John Martin. I'm joined tonight by two ACC legends, Terrence Oglesby, John Henson. 3 panelists tonight for each guaranteed ACC bid. Gentlemen, good to be with you tonight. We got a lot to touch on a busy college basketball night. Hey, after this show is over, we're moving over to the Stadium app exclusively for Last Call. All you got to do is download the all-new app. It's the Stadium app. Interact with us during Last Call. That means ask questions about college basketball that we may not touch on in this hour on SiriusXM. Join the live chat, play interactive games for a chance to win prizes. We want to hear from you. Download the app now. Join in the conversation. Enjoy Last Call. Guys, good to be with you as always. Let's start with what happened in the Big East tonight. UConn snaps a 21-game losing streak on the road against ranked teams, getting it done 74-67. As you see there, Alex Karaban led the way with 23 points. Now, again, you have to say, T.O., as you know, no Kolek tonight for Marquette, but how about this performance on the road by the UConn Huskies, who just continue to roll?
Well, I think it was impressive, especially at the beginning, because Marquette took off. They were ready to go on senior night. And Kolek not playing, obviously, is just so big. But I think the one thing that you can point to with this UConn team is their composure. Danny Hurley's found a system. And Donovan Clingan's as good as advertised, and Tristen Newton's even better. They are very much in the driver's seat to repeat as national champions because, one, the way they play is very conducive to the NCAA tournament because they're so big, they're so physical, and they have a big point guard in Tristen Newton that's just going to be able to settle them down and be the best player on the floor, the best collegiate player on the floor in 95% of the games that they play. So this UConn team, as good as they are, they also got some extra help today from my man Alex Karaban, who's finally hitting shots. If he's hitting shots and spacing the floor, my God, how do you guard him? I don't know. That's that's your conundrum if you're any Big East team or any other team in the country that gets matched up against UConn in the NCAA tournament.
John, what do you think?
The Hurley Express continues to roll, man. I mean, he's they're playing well. Obviously, they didn't have their All-American Big East Player of the Year, so this game was more of a, they looked focused. They looked like they were in tune. I just like the way they play. They move the ball seamlessly, selflessly. Tristen Newton, Clingan, Karaban, Cam Spence. I mean, they look primed for a run, a deep run. So today was just another step towards getting to where they need to be in March. And, obviously we can't say enough about how they've been playing. Unfortunately, Marquette didn't have their star player, but UConn is UConn, man, and they look really good.
Does John have like the ghost from The Ring in his house? Does anybody else see that? I'm just a little nervous. I'm a little nervous about I see like some static, man. Just make sure everything is cool over there. Yeah.
Right. You know,
I'm a
these
little worried
these
about somebody
4K
coming
cameras,
through.
man. I don't know, like these 4K cameras, like they sound. I don't know what's going on here. Well, maybe in a break I'll figure it
Yeah,
out. But hopefully, it's
just keep an ear in the
weird,
event you like hear some weird stuff in the kitchen, bro.
weird
I'm looking out
energy.
for you,
Okay,
man. All right, I've seen those
good.
movies before. To from the Marquette perspective, you mentioned it. They were ready to come. They were ready to go, and it's so hard when you don't have your engine, which is Kolek, who drives everything. But they did get Oso back tonight, and obviously Cam Jones did pitch in with 18. Just how do you assess this Marquette team? I mean, I assume they believe they will get Kolek back. I mean, it seems a little hard to assess them without knowing when and how effective he's going to be.
1 assist in the first half. Did Marquette have 1 assist? That says almost everything you need to know. And I'm not saying he would have given 6 or 7 in that first half, but what Kolek does when they're running that 5 out with Oso at the top, it's not just him passing the ball. It's him going to set those down screens, curling off those down screens, setting the screens for the guy he's curling off of. He just has such a good awareness, not only with the ball, but without it. And as a result, guys are able to get open shots just by his presence being on the floor. And he's the rare guy who's averaging over 7 assists that probably has just as many screening assists because he just knows where guys are all the time and how to create open lanes for his teammates. Look, Cam Jones, really good player. He was good tonight. 18 points on 7 of 15 shooting. Oso Ighodaro, he ran into a buzzsaw a little bit trying to attack anything inside of 8 feet because Donovan Clingan's a man down there. He did have some good spots, sure, but Kolek's the guy who makes this go. With or without the ball, they go from a team that can win 1 game in the tournament or 2 maybe to if Kolek's back, they can make a Final Four. He's that big of an impact guy. And look, Trey Norman came in. He was good today. Ben Gold, I'm a massive fan of. I think you're going to be able to see his best basketball after Ighodaro's gone. But Kolek just impacts their offense so much, not just with the assists, but with his general movement and his willingness to not be the guy who has to chase the ball, if that makes sense. And I know John knows what I'm talking about there.
Yeah. We had Kendall Marshall. We were number 1 overall seed. He gets injured. We get to the Elite 8, but we could not do anything with Kansas. Tyshawn Taylor ripped us apart, especially at the end when we needed, points and we needed good possessions. And that's kind of what Marquette's going to do if Kolek can come back. He is the engine, more so than Kendall was for our team that runs Marquette. Like T.O. said, 1 assist in the first half. That doesn't sound like Marquette basketball. Ighodaro had to be a lot more aggressive. I'm sure that was a game plan. Look, we need you to be aggressive against Clingan, try to get him in foul trouble. But going through him, over him, is probably not the best thing to do. Especially
and since he can't shoot, John, since he can't shoot too, Clingan can just sit back there. And that don't give me the single cam. I'm talking back and forth to John. Since he can't go, since he can't shoot the basketball, Clingan can sit back. And because he can sit back like that, that takes away a lot of those passing angles too to some of these backdoor cutters, right? Like that 5-out offense. If you have a 5 guy that can't really shoot it, it's really, really hard to run, especially when you have a monster playing defense at the 5.
And I get the strategy of going at a shot blocker. That's how you attack him, but didn't work tonight. He doesn't have the size and the length to really affect Clingan. Clingan had 4 blocks, but I mean, he probably affected the game way more than those 4 blocks, 12 rebounds. He had a problem. And so if Marquette gets Kolek back, they'll be fine. If not, they're in trouble. I just wonder what the committee does if he doesn't play before the tournament. What do they do with their seeding? How do they seed him? Do they keep the same seeding per se? So that'll be interesting too, because you go down a couple seeds and you're gonna mess around and have Kentucky or somebody the second game. Somebody that's maybe a Tennessee. You're not a Tennessee, but a higher seed. So you don't want that.
John, I want to ask you, because you came in the year after UNC, won it all. And I'm not trying to blame you for what happened that year, bro. I'm not trying to put that on you, but it speaks to how difficult it is right after you win the title to maintain that level. Now, again, I think you guys had a lot more names and faces changed than UConn has, but I mean, UConn lost quite a bit with Sanogo and Hawkins. Like how impressive is it knowing that they lost the production they lost, and they're still, I mean, they're even better from a regular season standpoint.
You know, John, we lost just Tyler Hansbrough, Ty Lawson, Wayne Ellington, Danny Green. Yeah, we lost.
That's it.
Just
that's
guys.
it, man.
Just a few.
That's all.
Nah, but I mean, we knew that, you know, Sanogo leaving, Clingan was going to step in, Newton was staying. I think the biggest get for them was Cam Spencer. That was that changed the game. Whereas, like, you know, when I did the Miami game and I talked to Coach Larinaga, he was like, you know, we missed out on Cormac Ryan and Cam Spencer, and we really needed that in our starting lineup. And so if UConn doesn't have Spencer, then all of a sudden Diarra is a little more on his shoulders. Castle can't really warm up and get to where he needs to be as a freshman and kind of take his time. They're going to need more out of him. So it was the perfect storm for that team. And shout out to Coach Hurley for bringing him in. I think that was the most impactful transfer in the country, potentially, especially being a team that just won it. Like, the rich got richer at this point.
I caught hell for saying this, John, but I think Cam Spencer is a better collegiate player this year, just this year, than Jordan Hawkins was last year for this UConn team. And the reason being, it's the added playmaking with the ball. It's the toughness plays. Jordan Hawkins is going to play a lot longer in the NBA or at the professional ranks as long as he wants, because he shoots it so well. You can run offense for him. You can do all that. But in the college game, it's different. These big burly guards that might not be able to jump over a phone book, like, there's a lot of value in those tough guys right at the college level. And go ahead.
With Hawkins, it was kind of like feast or famine, right? Like, if he was on, we're jumping for joy. But some games we'd be like, he was like J.R. Smith, like, he'll shoot you in, he'll shoot you out. Fortunately for them, during the tournament, he shot him in. So Cam is definitely a lot more solid, a lot more dependable per se down the stretch as a playmaker, which it only helps because he can shoot it just as well as Hawkins.
T.O., as we're going through sort of the you know, the ramifications of this game, I'm curious because you've gone viral for your Coach of the Year opinions in the past. Should Dan Hurley win that award? And I mean, you get penalized sort of because the roster that you bring back. I understand that, but you know, it feels like when you take what he did in the regular season a year ago compared to winning the Big East for the first time in forever this year, that I know it's a talented team, but you still have to go out there and do it, right? So should he be the front runner? Should he win that award?
In my mind, it's between him, Lamont Paris, and Danny Sprinkle. It has to be those three. After that, there's a lot of guys to be considered, and I'm sure somebody's going to mention somebody that I forgot. But for those top three, I think Danny Sprinkle not having a single player come back to Utah State and to have the year that he has had, that's huge. Lamont Paris in a big-time turnaround year for a roster that's basically the SoCon All-Stars outside of a couple guys. And then Danny Hurley, it must be something about the guy's named Danny, to be honest with you. But Danny Hurley bringing Clingan on, still managing to find ways to win early in the season when Clingan hurt, and kind of developing some of these other pieces and hanging on to Samson Johnson, which there's times where he's been frustrating for UConn fans, sure. But, man, he's a very good backup, And I think, you know, letting Castle kind of develop into his role, but it's those two guards in Clingan that make them so dangerous. And if Caravan's hitting shots, guys, oh, buddy, I mean, there's just so much to like. It's no longer Penny Hardaway, to be honest with you, after that January prediction that I had. Not Penny. Definitely not Penny. But I think that would be my three. That would be my three.
John, you have just watching Danny Hurley do his thing. I mean, he's grown a lot, because I remember when UConn was in the American, I saw it up close and personal. Those UConn teams were not even close to resembling what he's built now.
Now, you know, he's assembled a roster of, you know, I mean, like, Clingan was in his backyard. I mean, he got lucky with that, right? Like, that was a lucky, you know, that's what happens.
They're playing in the American, John.
Yeah.
It's still UConn, though.
It's still UConn, but like the way that their offense is humming, like, I enjoy watching them play. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just enjoy the way they move it. They share the ball. So they're going to be a tough out just off the strength of their style of play. I mean, they
I don't think UConn goes out.
Yeah,
I don't think UConn goes out.
I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about that shit. I mean,
Yeah,
you prove it to me.
man.
Prove it to me.
Yeah,
At this point,
I can't. Yeah, I can't. I mean, something wonky happens, maybe, but
yeah.
if the way that their style of play, they're not going to beat themselves, and you better pray to God. You better pray to God that they don't have a good game, or it's just going to be a buzzsaw moment, right? For anybody.
Curtains. It's been curtains for a lot of teams this year, and they keep rolling tonight, man. Don't step in front of that train. That's a mistake if you do that.
The Hurley Express.
That's right. You get it, man. Don't step in front.
If you ever thought there was a place to make John richer, take the Hurley train.
That's right. We'll get to seeing more on the other side. Go to 68 after dark.